Hi friends, today we are learning a new printmaking method called monoprinting. And so mono, the word mono actually means one. And so monoprinting is a printmaking method where you can make an image one time and that's it. So with a lot of printmaking techniques, you can make the same image again and again. Like if you remember doing screen printing in class, you can use that same stencil again and again and make the same image with that screen. But with monoprinting, it's different every single time. And it's different because you're painting on a surface like this, and you can do whatever you want on this surface. But once you print it, the paint is pretty much gone. And if it's not gone, it looks really different. So if you print this plate again, it'll look different. And so you'll only have one-of-a-kind prints. So every print you make with monoprinting, they're all going to be different. None of them will be the same. So it's really fun to play around with, and you can make a bunch of different monoprints. And if you make them, I would love to see them. So for monoprinting, you will need some sort of a hard surface like this. I am lucky enough to have like this random piece of plexiglass hanging around, but if you don't have something like this, a piece of cardboard will work, or you could even saran wrap a piece of cardboard and make something like this. You know, anything will really work. So that's the first part, and then you need obviously paper upon which to print. I'm using watercolor paper, but it doesn't really matter. And then you're also going to need some kind of paint. So I'm using a watercolor palette today, but I think acrylics would work super well. I think tempera paints would be really good for kids. It's all about what you have hanging around the house. So the first thing I'm gonna do is put this stuff off to the side. I'm gonna take this piece of paper and I'm gonna figure out where I want to print this. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover this with paint, and then we're going to place the piece of paper on top of it. I'm actually using one of my old prints from another lesson. You're going to press the piece of paper on top of it, and the paint that's on the mat is going to print onto the paper. So in order to make it look a little nicer, you can actually grab a pencil and trace where this will be on the paper when you print it. And tracing along these lines is a really great motor skill, following those lines, keeping your hand steady. And then you can also, even if you want to take it to the next level, you can grab some painter's tape and you can run it along that line. And this will keep the picture just really nice and crisp and clean with these wonderful straight edges. And I'm going to do it on the bottom as well. And if you don't have painter's tape, you can use masking tape, or you could tape pieces of paper over the edges, whatever you want. So we've got this all ready. I'm going to set it aside. We're gonna grab our little mat, and this is where the fun part begins. So you can really do whatever you want on this little guy. You can use all sorts of different tools. I'm just gonna grab a paintbrush today, but feel free to use, you know, things to draw in there with, like sticks or combs, whatever you want. This is and it's really fun to paint on things like this too, because it's so smooth. It's so different than paper. So I'm just gonna get a lot of different colors on here. I've got some blue, I'm gonna dab some red on. And you'll see that it doesn't really stay in place the same way that paint on paper would, which is really fun to experiment with. You can ask your child, you know, what is the paint doing? Why do you think it's doing that? What happens when you paint on a surface like this versus a surface like paper? And of course it will vary based on what kind of paint you're using too. So if you're using tempera paint, it won't resist the matte as much, obviously, which is really fun to experiment with. And the nice thing about this project too is that it's a two-step process. So you have one image, the image that's on the mat, and then when you print it onto your paper, you'll have this second image. And you can make observations at every step. So you can think about what it looks like here, what it will look like when it's on the mat, and why those changes happen. Just gonna keep filling up my mat. Got a lot of colors on here. All right, I think I'm good. I think I'm ready to print. So, once you have that all set up, you can take your piece of paper, and because we have the tape on the back, we can actually see where we are supposed to press it. So we're just gonna lay it down flat on the mat, like so. And you wanna use your fingers to just press all over the mat. And you wanna move your fingers sort of circular motions, like this. Just like this. And you can even use, actually, if you have the back of a wooden spoon, you can use the wooden spoon to make circular motions on the back, which is a classic printmaking technique. All right, and then you're going to pull it off, and there you have your beautiful print. And you can remove the tape so you have these nice clean lines. And yeah, that's mono printmaking. It's really fun to do. Test it out with different things around the house. Like if you have, you know, some sort of circular hard plastic toy, you could print with that. And another thing you can do is once you have this print, you can pull what is called a ghost print. So if you had another piece of paper, you could actually print this again and see what happens as you continue to print it, what changes. It gets fainter, it gets lighter, and those are great observations you can make as you move through the process. So here is the final product with the tape removed. And at this point, your child can print on top of it again. They can experiment by adding salt to watercolors or adding more water, whatever they want to do. And I'd love to see what you make in the comments down below.